Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have tonight's special guest, Eva Velasquez, who is the CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center. Eva, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, James. Really, really looking forward to giving folks some good information on how to stay safe this holiday season.
Both got our reasons, Savea, for that we've let everybody know why this is such an important subject for us, especially now.
Yes.
With the start of the holiday season of identity theft and ways to minimize one's risk.
So tell us about the Identity Theft Center.
So the Identity Theft Resource Center is a nonprofit organization that was founded 20 years ago, back in 1999. And our mission is to empower and guide all stakeholders, so consumers, victims, businesses, and even government, in both minimizing the risk of identity crimes and compromise, but also in recovery. And we do all of this for free to the public. And we do it through a variety of platforms, a lot of education, just like what I'm doing right now. But we also have a contact center where if you have an issue that you're experiencing, you can reach out to us real time and talk to one of our advisors. You can do it on our toll-free hotline. You can do it via live chat. We have an app. You can text to chat with us. You can email us. So any way that you want to get in touch with us. Okay, we don't have carrier pigeons yet, but maybe that'll be coming down the pipeline soon. Any way that you need to have your questions answered, you can talk to someone, because this is a really complicated space. And, it's hard to be an expert in everything that we do. And we use so much technology and we engage online so frequently that it's just really hard to keep track of what are the best practices and how do I reduce my risk surface, and I think we'll get into it in just a second or so. But what actually is identity theft? Is it more than just what you typically think of having your credit card, having unauthorized charges on your credit card? So we do a lot of talking about what the different forms are and what it actually looks like when you experience it.
Yep. So that is really great. Great things to know, because we're coming upon the holiday season. So we want to make sure everyone kind of thinks of different ways to prevent themselves from getting into a bad situation without them knowing they're getting into bad situations.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with, what is identity theft? A lot of people go, I don't even know what you're talking about when you talk about my identity. So I always tell folks, think about your identity like a big puzzle. And there are all these different pieces, credentials and tokens and biometrics and all of this different data about you that is being used to either verify or authenticate who you are when you engage in a non-face-to-face transaction. So things like your social security number, your driver's license number, your date of birth, your address, your phone number. Yeah, we kind of go, all right, that sounds like that would be part of my identity. But your behavior, your biometrics, your fingerprints, pictures, that's part of your identity profile. And then things like where you shop, how often you shop, how much you spend. Did you know that there are even programs that measure the angle at which you hold your phone, the tension with which you press the keys, and that's all being captured so that you can be verified seamlessly behind the scenes.
Wow.
Now, there are good reasons, there are good things that they do with this. There's a lot of fraud prevention that goes on there. But of course, if that data is compromised and a thief knows that about you, well, then it just makes it that much easier for them to pretend to be you, which, essentially that's what identity theft is. Someone else is using your identity credentials and your data to pretend to be you and to engage in the outside world in all the same ways that you would do it, taking out loans, making purchases, getting medical care, providing that information to law enforcement if requested. Is it get a jaywalking ticket saying, oh no, I'm not Eva Velasquez, I'm James. So any way that you use those credentials for yourself, if a thief has access to them, they can use them as well.
Wow. It's crazy, because like you see all these movies in Hollywood about, there was a movie with Melissa McCarthy and Jason Bateman, and she was stealing his identity.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because it really happens. I mean, this isn't like, only in Hollywood. There is so many instances when it happens, and people are
14 to 16 million victims every year.
that's a lot of people.
14 to 16 million. That's not since we've been measuring it. That's on an annual basis. And that's what's being reported and what we know about.
I was about to say that's you've got to figure. I mean, just draw an arbitrary number out of the air that doesn't seem completely unfounded to say that. To say is that there's probably as much as a third more of that, and that may be a bit conservative considering how sophisticated they've gotten. My most significant experience with identity theft, I've had financial identity theft a couple of times, but the most significant one that I mentioned earlier in 2006, that was the good bad old days where all they were after was your driver's license number and a credit card or a social. Thank God they didn't get the social with mine. But now that what you mentioned, the sophistication has happened because, if the bad guys are going to, good guys are going to have a safeguard, the bad guys are going to find a way to overcome it and cheat it, and vice versa the way it goes. It's just constantly, shove it like that. Want to keep your head of the other. But the sophistication they have, to be able to take advantage of it, that I mentioned with the biometrics you said, to protect the consumer, can also be doing that much more damage to the financial identity theft victim too also.
Right. As these things are more widely adopted. So let's think about fingerprints. 6 years ago, fingerprints were like, people were like, oh, creepy. I don't want to use that to identify myself. And then Apple went ahead and normalized using your biometrics to log into your phone. And it just became part. And now Apple has normalized face recognition on your phone. And we go, wow, this is really convenient. I love it. And look, there are some benefits to this. It can be much harder to duplicate that information, but it's not impossible. And to your point, James, there's nothing that's impenetrable. There's no system and there's no process that's impenetrable. We have to just make it really, really, really hard. Because if a thief wants to get that data, break into a system or hack into a system, I mean, they can spend all of their time trying to find those vulnerabilities. So nothing is impenetrable, but the more we engage in this fight and try to collect more data so that we can, use it for fraud analytics, well, the more data we're creating about ourselves that can then be compromised, that can then be used against us. So it can be a very vicious cycle.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong here. On the bad guy dark web, I think might be one term for it. You do have some I say companies, but bad guys that are offering lists of credit cards and socials that a person can buy, like what, 20,000 for 15 or 20 bucks.
Oh, you have to think of the dark web as the Amazon for the thieves. Okay. It's an entire fraud ecosystem. And I have watched this evolution. Like I said, I've been in this space for over 30 years, and there was a level of sophistication that used to be required to commit these types of crimes. And now you have people who specialize in one thing. They write malicious code. They actually hack into the systems, and then they turn around and they sell the data. It really is a marketplace, and you don't have to be that sophisticated in order to participate. You can just be one of those bad actors that is, because I want to be a thief. You go onto the dark web. They have kits that will tell you how to monetize this data. They have customer service where you leave them reviews. It is sickening how much this infrastructure is just like any other legitimate business infrastructure, where you would purchase goods to run your business, purchase services to run your business. You can do that in the fraud ecosystem. So it has become, the dark web has become this marketplace for this data, and we're just running to catch up and try to keep, getting the data off of there, or at least alerting people to the fact that your information's been compromised and you need to take some steps to minimize your risk now that you know what's been compromised.
I think it's probably a bad timing joke here to say is that all you need is a credit card to get the list of credit cards.
Well, no, all you need is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
They
Oh,
they don't
yeah.
no, they don't want any chargebacks.
I was
No.
thinking Bitcoin, but I just want to work on the credit cards. It sounds better punchline. Now we're
Right.
getting lost in the technicals of my joke not being accurate.
So, so Vivian, for example, Vivian's asking, she says she does a lot of shopping online. So can we start talking about how can our customers, our friends or shoppers look on ways to protect themselves from purchasing online?
Absolutely. And the good news is that there are ways to do it safely. It is a great convenience, and there are a lot of, great and legitimate retailers. So I don't want anybody to walk away from this conversation either afraid or thinking I don't even want to shop online, because there are ways to do it safely. And it is getting more and more widely adopted. E-commerce and online shopping grows about 1 to 2% every year. That's been the historical norm. This year, in the first 10 days of the holiday buying season, it actually grew by more than 20%.
Yeah. Well,
So
everyone's
people
shopping
are looking
online, especially because of
people are looking
COVID.
to do more.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, this year I think we're going to have if you think about online shopping, sort of people who do that on a spectrum, you've got a group of people who they do all their shopping online. That's all they do. They're super comfortable with it. Then you've got this big group in the middle, who do a combination of the two. They'll do some online shopping, but they like to go into the store and they like to, browse and look for that perfect gift for, their uncle or their daughter. And then you've got a group of people on this other end of the spectrum who absolutely don't engage in online shopping. And I think what we're going to be seeing now is that a lot of people who are just going to switch to 100% online shopping. And then you are going to have people who've never done it before engaging. So one of the things that I'm really encouraging folks to do is, after you get these tips and after you hear how to navigate this space safely, by all means, please share it with your friends and family. Share it with grandma, and mom, and your uncle, who maybe this is the only way they can do their holiday shopping and they've never done it before. Share the tips, walk them through it. Take some time to help those new to online transactions shoppers so that they can do it safely. And I think the primary message that I want to get out to people is about fake websites.
Mhm.
And that's because this notion that, oh, I can spot a fake website, they don't look that nice, and they're fuzzy and they have grammatical errors. Those days are long gone. They are extremely sophisticated, and it costs nothing to invest in putting together a slick looking, very professional looking website. And I don't want to discourage people from engaging with new businesses, small businesses, and businesses that they've never had a relationship with. By all means, we want to keep small businesses functioning, especially in this economy. But I am going to encourage people to do their homework
Mhm.
before you engage with a brand new company that you've never had any kind of relationship before, and that you don't know. It's not recognizable. It's not Walmart, Target, Macy's, Kohl's. It's some new smaller retailer. Do some homework. Check on review sites, third-party review sites like the Better Business Bureau, Yelp, and see what other people are saying about their experience with them. And if you aren't able to find any background information on the company, that's something that you should sort of put in the back of your mind. Hey, I can't find anything, nothing good or bad. It could just mean that they're brand new, and that's okay. But then you move a little bit further, and you can Google the name of the organization and just put, complaints, XYZ company scam, XYZ company complaints, and see what pops up in your searches. And then, the last thing that I recommend that people do with the fake websites is really take a look at the pricing structure on there. If
Mhm.
you are seeing prices that are far below retail value,
Yeah.
on a lot of products. If you are able to find products that are out of stock everywhere else, that's a huge red flag. And it's happening already. It's happening now. not necessarily with holiday gifts, but just 2 weeks ago, the Federal Trade Commission took down about 25 fake websites that were selling Clorox and Lysol disinfectant products, things that were out of stock everywhere else. You were allowed to buy in
Yes, I think
bulk.
yeah.
So that's that, that big red flag of, oh, I can get something that I've been looking for and only they have it, especially when you're looking at electronics. A
Mhm.
lot of electronics they have a market value. And yes, companies will have loss leaders where they'll sell something below market value to kind of get you in the door, but not with things like Apple products or brand new gaming consoles.
Mhm.
It's just not going to happen. So if it sounds too good to be true, then it is.
Actually, it happened to me last year. I was trying to order a new clock, like you see, I have a clock in the background, but I was trying to order the specific clock that I had that got broken. And I
Mm.
looked everywhere on the internet, everywhere, everywhere, and I found it. I was like, I found it. This is great. I found it. I can't believe it. So I placed the order. Everything looked legit. And then a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and nothing showed up. And so I contacted the company and I said, are you going to give me my money? What's going on with my order? They just still didn't reply. And so I was like, this doesn't sound right. And so I just started reading the website and seeing scam articles and whatnot. So then I filed a dispute
Mhm.
with my credit card company, and like that quickly I got the money back. Like,
Well, and that's one of the great tips is use a credit card. If you can, don't use a debit card because that is actually tied to your accounts. And unfortunately, when they get access to that, get access to the actual cash in the bank, you don't have the same consumer protections that you do with a credit card. I know you should. I think it's silly that we don't, but that's how it works. So use a credit card. And if someone is saying, hey, a company is saying Venmo me or send me a wire transfer or I want it in Bitcoin, that's a huge red flag because what they're doing is trying to circumvent those protections that you have because you can do a chargeback if you don't get an item or it's not as represented.
Yeah. On the other end, Survey and I both have active e-commerce websites that we do our business with. And is there a service or I know anything can be faked. I
Mhm.
saw one of my favorite emails, phishing emails was, and that's phishing with a PH. You got to point out the crowd. I remember saying that when I used to be a volunteer at IDRC. That the phishing email that you click on it and everything behaved. All the code was legit to look like a Bank of America website, except for, of course, the the whole domain name was a dead giveaway, but everything else behaved was legit. The email where it forwarded everything, even the email address was slightly off, which was dead giveaway number one to me. But is there some kind of like a service or any kind of a sign you can see from a website that is legitimate? Like, say, even their shopping cart, one of the things I look for is, do they take PayPal? Because there's a lot of consumer protections, great things with PayPal.
That's a great tip. Yes. The more kind of normal e-commerce engagement, so they'll take a credit card, they'll take PayPal. That can give you some comfort that you're dealing with a legitimate business. And again, I always say, look for that other third party verification, Yelp, other customer reviews, different review websites, and that will give you a good indicator.
Even new businesses won't have Yelp reviews yet. They still haven't built up their audience. And I know that, like, I had a friend a few months ago that says, if you don't take PayPal, I wouldn't even shop the website. I don't know how legit you are. He won't do it. There's a point to be made. I mean, even like, say, services like Square Up, would that be a legitimate sign also to look for?
That it's helpful because yes, it will take your actual credit card.
Got it.
So it's the
Um,
financial instrument. It's not the payment platform. It's the financial instrument. It's when they are saying, no, I want to get around using credit cards. I want to get around traditional financing. Send me Bitcoin, send me a wire transfer, send me gift cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, send your payment in iTunes gift cards. Those are the things that circumvent those protections, those consumer protections that are in place. And you brought up another thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's the phishing emails during the holiday season, because
Mhm.
I think that's a really important one. And It's not just for holidays. Right now, fishing is through the roof. It's just skyrocketed with COVID. So from work at home to disaster relief to healthcare scams, it is just through the roof. But now we're approaching the holidays, and they will come in the form of um, fake offers and deals and fear of missing out, all of those things that are designed to play on your emotions. I want to get this really good deal. I want to be able to get this gift. I want to be able to get this done. I have this long list, and this will help me get it done. And so I do want to encourage people, when you get an email, don't respond directly to that email or text message or even the phone call. If it's legitimate, you will be able to go to the source and then go take advantage of it. So, and that works across the board. It's not just for the holiday season, but to your point, James, when you got this email that looked like it was from Bank of America, I just tell people, go to the source. If you are actually a customer of that bank, you're a legitimate customer, pull out your card and call the number on the back of the card. Maybe you have you engage in online banking. Go that route. Maybe you have it as an app, mobile banking on your phone. Go that route. And then reach out to them and say, hey, are you trying to get in touch with me? Because if they really are, there'll be a message in your secure message center. There'll be a record of that. The representative that you're calling will be able to say, oh, yes, Miss Velasquez, we actually are trying to get in touch with you. There was fraud on your account, or we have a new credit offer. No thanks, I'm not interested. But so when you get these offers through whatever platform, just go to the source to verify it. And that way you're not stifling commerce. You could get a legitimate offer from a brand new small business, but you're able to verify that they actually do have a presence somewhere, a web presence. You can look and see that they actually are set up to take credit cards and not asking you for Bitcoin, and go through doing that homework so that you're dealing with a legitimate retailer and it's not a scam. Please don't click on the links. Please don't call the phone number. Please don't respond directly to the text message until you've done that little bit of homework.
Exactly.
It takes a little extra time, but not as much. And I know you both can attest to this, but it doesn't take as much time as it does to unwind an identity theft case.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I think, sorry, Savannah.
No, go ahead. You're going to talk along the. I was
about to say that we will definitely be posting plenty of links on the show for everyone to be able to follow up on their own education on this really important subject, especially the ones that's probably the easiest to fall for and the hardest to understand is the phishing emails. And we'll be definitely, I'm sure you'll be fine. Good if we were posting links to Identity Theft Resource Center's website to articles where people can follow up on their own to learn so much about this, about it. But,
and yet, can I just say one more thing on that? Because I want to make sure your listeners and viewers understand. I'm not saying don't ever click on a link.
Yeah.
If you're expecting it, if you have a relationship, so you're signed up for a newsletter that's from a legitimate company. You signed up, you get that newsletter every month. They have links in it saying here are these different things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where you didn't initiate the contact, or you don't have a relationship with that person or that organization. It's very different. If you're on the ITRC newsletter list and we send you links to our articles, us, you've engaged with us, and you're expecting that communication from us. That is very different than just getting this sort of this unknown contact coming over the transom and getting a text message that says, hey, want some free money? Which, by the way, I am getting a ton of. I am getting all over the last couple of weeks. I've got all these messages that are like, hey, we're ready to release your $1,400 in funds. I'm like, oh, this is new. And then I've just been getting a steady stream. Hey, want access to lots of funding? I mean, I have to pull some of these up because they're just.
Oh, please do. I mean, you had to have a field day on this one when it came to like the CARES package and the stimulus, the federal stimulus and the care package last spring through August.
Yeah.
That had to put all your staff in overdrive.
It did. We had about 9 months worth of traffic to our website in a 3-week period.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. We saw the demand for our services just went up like a hockey stick because it was so confusing. And then of course, what happens? All the scammers come out and go, "Hey, I got your funding right here," and people didn't know what was legitimate and what wasn't.
Yeah.
That's our problem. Is I mentioned that the Bank of America email that came in, and it looked legitimate. I went, this is pretty slick. I took a screenshot of it and shared on my Facebook page and saying, this is why it's not legitimate. The biggest thing is where the links pointed. You got to be suspicious of everything. The easy ways of looking you won a lottery from, a Nigerian lottery.
Yeah, foreign lotteries are illegal, by the way, so you can never win a foreign lottery.
So one of my family members actually got a call, and he thought it was legitimate that he was getting a call from the Social Security, Social Security, and they were saying that there was illegal activity with his Social Security number, and that he needed to verify that it was him. So they wanted him to tell his Social Security number, and he pretty much almost fell for it. He called me, and I said, "No, that is scam all over it. Do not give them information." He said, "Well, you should call them." I said, "I'm not going to call them, and you shouldn't call them back either."
No, don't call it. When I say go to the source, don't call the number that's on your caller ID, and don't call the number that they give you. You want to go and independently get that number. And if you need help finding a phone number for an organization or an entity, you can reach out to the ITRC. We'll help you find the legitimate number.
So that's utility companies, the
really good to bring up.
Make sure that you contact those, because they have tried to scam us, even our store. They call our phone here.
Yeah, and they will say, "I'm with it." And don't trust the caller ID. It'll say IRS on the top. It'll say Social Security Administration. It'll say state, tax board or DMV or whatever. It's so easy to spoof. You just can't trust it anymore. So that's why I always say go to the source. It's super easy to remember.
I think for some people that may find the information overwhelming is that there's certain things we can definitely say that should be dead giveaways. U.S. companies you do business with are not going to ask for payment in Bitcoin. They're not going to ask for iTunes gift cards.
Correct.
What's some of the others are still happening? Also,
Venmo, Cash App.
Yeah, there's a reason my business does not do Venmo. It's not legitimate for business. Not slamming Venmo, but just bad practice, not best practice there. What's another one here?
Well, the pressure. A legitimate business is not going to, they want to keep you as a customer. Think about this, James. If you were reaching out to a customer and wanting to talk to them about a transaction or just anything that's going on, and they said, "Oh, I need to verify this," you wouldn't start screaming at them. You wouldn't start pressuring them and saying, "How dare you? You have to do this right away. There's going to be consequences." Legitimate businesses want to retain you as a customer or acquire you as a new customer. They're not going to start yelling at you or pressuring you or telling you that there are going to be severe consequences. They might tell you that you're going to miss out on a deal, and they might do it with a little bit of pressure, but they're not going to start raising their voice or telling you that there are going to be severe consequences. And if you were to say to someone on the phone, "I'm not going to engage with you. I'm not going to give you this information. I need to verify who I'm talking to." Let's just say it's your bank. "Okay, you're saying there's fraud on my account and you need to verify a few things. I need to verify who I'm talking to. I'm going to call my bank." If it's legitimately your bank, they're going to say, "Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. My customer rep number is, 3456. My name is Angela. Ask for me when you call Bank of America," or whatever the issue is. They're not going to yell at you and tell you, "How dare you?" Don't you get off the phone with me. They
Every-
want to keep you on the phone, and they want to keep you in an emotionally heightened state because you don't make good logical decisions. We have these two areas in our brain. We have the logic center that's really good at math, and then we have that emotional center that gets, really excited about good things and really scared about the scary things. And when we've got that one center, and I might be doing the wrong sides, but you know what I mean. We've got that one part of our brain that is all emotional. And when we stay engaged in that side of our brain, we can't tap into that logic center. That's why so many scam victims, after the fact, once they've disconnected and hung up the phone, once the pressure is off, they're able to reflect and go, that didn't seem right. I don't think I should have done that. Then they end up calling us and saying, hey, I just bought, $300 worth of iTunes gift cards for to pay my SDG&E bill, or my gas and electric bill.
happens.
And we have to tell them, yeah, you're right. That doesn't pass the smell test. That was a scam. But they're not able to recognize it until they get off the phone and don't have that pressure and don't have someone chirping at them, engaging that emotional side of their brain.
So,
Well, first of all, everything you said that businesses don't do their customers, Surveya did that to me. I pick on Surveya a lot. All I did was buy a little bead from your shop, and next thing I know, I'm forced to help co-host a show. I'm sorry. We pick on each other a lot during the show.
you can't buy a 35-cent bead, James. You have to buy a $1 bead.
The interest went up all of a sudden.
Yes. So, is there a good way to store your passwords online? Is there any kind of advice you have on that? Because all of these websites, for example, I have a different password for every single website.
Good.
It's a lot of passwords. It's like I have hundreds of passwords I have to remember. So, what is a good way to save your passwords that's very secure?
There are a couple of options here. Now, if you are someone who's pretty, tech savvy and understands how to use these platforms, you can use a password manager. Now, there's a fee involved with those. They're usually subscription based. So you pay either a monthly or an annual license fee, and those are very secure. I can't endorse any particular one. That's not what we do. But as far as an industry, they have a lot of value.
Mhm.
Now, for a lot of people, they're not intuitive and they don't know how to use them, and so they're sort of in between. Heavy users with hundreds of accounts,
Mhm.
really, it's a great way to go.
Mhm.
But for a lot of folks, they have more accounts than they can remember, but they're not that heavy of a user. So I'm going to give you some great advice that you're going to love me for, and that is write them down.
Write them down.
And I know this is something that a lot of advocates disagree on, because they will tell you should never write down your passwords. It depends on how you're doing it. It really does. If you have so many passwords that you can't use strong and unique passwords across all of your accounts, I would rather see you write those down on a piece of paper or a notebook and keep that in a secure location, like in a locking file cabinet, a locking drawer in your desk, a place that not a lot of people have access to. Yes, it's true. If your house is broken into and someone physically steals that piece of, that notebook, they could access your accounts. But your risk is far less if that happens. The odds of that happening are far less than if you go, I can't remember them all. I'm not supposed to write them down. I'm just going to use the same password over all of my accounts. That's the worst thing that you can do. That is the biggest vulnerability, and it's creating huge problems for us. In fact, I would venture to say that poor password management and data breaches created the 26 billion with a B deficit that we now have for state unemployment benefits.
Mhm.
That fraud due to COVID has been measured at 26 billion this year that we know about. And it's because of credential cracking. It's
Wow.
because we had all these breaches of all of these, easy passwords that people used over and over again. And so they were able to do a targeted attack on these state systems with those breached credentials. So please, if you can't remember strong and unique passwords for all of your accounts, you can't navigate using a password manager, yes, it's okay to write them down on a piece of paper. I really want to make it clear. Don't put them in a Word document and store them on your computer. Now you're in the online realm again. Computers can be hacked. Your desk drawer can't be hacked. It can only be physically, your home could be physically broken into. That's true. But think about that. The odds are far less likely that your home is going to be broken into than a password that you use across multiple accounts is going to be breached.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, because I keep a lot of passwords written right here, but I'm not going to turn this around because we're going to be live on the internet and people can see my passwords, and that'd be bad, which would actually probably.
I see your password. It's
no, you don't.
K9 2020.
No, it's not. How'd you know? No, it's not.
What kind of password is that?
It wasn't my password, even though how'd you figure that out? But no. This would be a good way to segue over into, like, say, online privacy, but we could go on and on with this. We have one question I think would be one of those, like, little things that people go aha about, and you can answer this from one of our viewers here.
Sure.
Is the security lock icon on a website legit, or can that be a fake? Basically, it's the SSL certificate.
The SSL certificate? No, that you can rely on that. You can rely on that. I mean, anything can be faked. Okay. I can't say that with 100% guarantee that it couldn't be fake, that someone hasn't figured that out, but it really is not an issue that we're concerned about. What we're more concerned about is that people don't pay attention to that. And they don't look for it. But no, an SSL certificate is a good indicator that you are dealing with a legitimate entity, and that it's secure, and that your transaction, when you're typing in that data, is also secure and not just open for the world to see.
Yeah. I've seen some websites where I'll look and they'll have, like, VeriSign on there. It says verified website. And I'm like, no, it's not. Anything can be faked. It's just like totally believe everything you see on the internet. And there was an SSL, but I mean, it's easy. You can get an SSL to set it up. I mean, getting technical here, a bad guy can set up an SSL on the site. But when you look at that as combined with, we mentioned earlier, as best practices, like, say, their payment system, their online presence. Do they have an active online presence? Because I mean, Lord, Savannah, you see us on live on the internet 2-3 times a week, a lot of times. And with the culmination on Friday night, I was putting together on that. Or are they active? Do they have a lot of reviews? As you said, there's ways to look for it. And we still don't want to, like, crush the chances of a new artist setting up a website or an Etsy page. But do you tend to find a lot of safeguards on Etsy sites? That's one of those popular ones for small businesses and artists to go to.
Well, I think that, with the platforms themselves, the sites, that they have an obligation to make sure that their processes and their sites are following best practices and are secure.
Sorry, I had a little peanut gallery that came in and is stealing my M&Ms.
That's why.
I wish I could reach to the screen. Can I have one?
Here. Let me hand some over to you right over here.
Nice.
You aren't physically far apart, because ITRC's in San Diego, Surveyor with Dancing Bears in Escondido. I'm the drive.
Yeah, right.
So we could I could almost reach over and get those delicious snack foods.
Yeah.
But James, you brought up a really good point, and that is that these are things that you're not looking for this one, panacea or this one thing. It is little and not so little, but it's layers of things.
Culmination.
That then very good. Yes. Excellent.
Yes.
It's a culmination of all of these different things that you're looking at that give you that level of more comfort when you're engaging. And, and trust your gut. Again, we get emotional when we're shopping, especially around the holidays. We're tired. We want to get the list done. We are going, okay, I've got 2 more things to buy. Okay, I'm just going to get these done and I'm finished.
Yeah.
And we don't do our homework and pay attention. And so that can just be one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, is just to slow down a little bit. Don't make emotional decisions, and take 5 when when you're doing this, when you're engaging this behavior, and just know, you know what, the internet will be there. I can take a break and come back to it and get my shopping done in 10 minutes after I, drink some water and think about, is this a good transaction?
So do you have any tips for, sorry, do you have any tips for anyone like to watch their account? Oh my goodness.
Well, it's not the ding dong we were talking about with the coming in and out of the Zoom session.
Oh my God.
Messenger.
So do you have any recommendations on how to watch your bank accounts? Especially because, are there things to look for so that you don't, with the holidays and whatnot, that you could just watch for? Anything?
Do you know what the great news is that now there are so many fraud protections in place with most accounts. Most credit card issues and most banks, even credit unions, will allow you to go into your settings and set alerts and set different parameters, purchasing parameters. And that's up to you as the owner of that account. So you can tell your bank, I want a notification on my phone for every time there's a transaction. Or maybe it's, I only want to see card not present, which would be the online, any of that shopping that's taking place where you're not actually physically swiping or inserting a card. So you can set up those parameters. You can even set up things like multi-factor authentication on your accounts, which I'm a huge fan. Oh my gosh, please set up multi-factor authentication. And for those of you that don't know what that means, I bet you've experienced it, even if you don't know what it's called. So if you say that you're logging into your bank account and you're using a new tablet or a new computer, you will get this note. They'll say, hey, we don't recognize this device you're using. We have to send you a code to a known device or email address that you already have on file. And so you go, okay, send it to my email or send it to my phone, and you get that code and you punch that in. Well, that's multi-factor authentication. And that is a tool that is available on so many different sites and so many different accounts, so that anytime someone's logging in, they have to get the code, including yourself. It takes about 3 seconds longer. It's totally worth it, but it's opt-in. They don't make it mandatory. And
Yeah.
you can opt into those things on a lot of, especially your accounts that have sensitive information, like your financial accounts.
Like
And
your Google one, like your Google, your bank, your Facebook. There's
Your Google can have more information about your financials and other things the bank won't even know about.
Yes, exactly.
your email really is the keys to the kingdom. Think about that. If your email is compromised,
Yes.
how do you reset your passwords when you've forgotten them? You say, send it to I forgot my password. Send me a reset link. If someone other than you has access to your email, they can reset. They don't need anything else. They can just go in and reset all your passwords. And now you no longer have access to them.
Yep.
So, one, use that strong password on that email account. And 2, set up multi-factor authentication. And layers, we're getting back into that layers conversation, where the more you add, the safer you'll be.
I will play devil's advocate on one part. The inconvenience of 2 or 3 step verification. I once had to set up a 2-step verification with my bank, and set up, had it where, sent a message to my phone, and I would read my fingerprint, and it didn't like the fingerprint, and then it locked me out of my own bank account, and I had to actually go in the local branch and unlock it. Had to make a physical appearance to say, yes, this happened. 2-step, 3-step verification is sometimes not the easiest, but it's still worth it, because I still kept that, even though it happened twice in 1 week. Having to go over to the bank and go, yeah, something's not working. It's probably usually it's user error, but it's still worth doing that. Just, it's another way to protect yourself, and it's worth the effort for anybody that may be going, I don't want to do 2-step verification. It's a pain in the butt. Well, yeah, it's easier. It's easier than that one time not doing it in that one time,
and then having
having
to
your money
all that
disappear.
stuff.
Exactly. James, you have the experience having been an identity theft victim. You know how traumatic it is. You know how hard it is to unwind. So when you do the comparison, you're like, yeah, that was really a pain for me to have to go into the branch to fix that, but it does protect me. And all in all, it's better for me to have this. Somebody who hasn't been a victim may not be able to do that analysis, because to your point, they go, 3 seconds. It takes me 3 seconds longer. There's no identity theft case in the world that can be resolved in 3 seconds. I guarantee you this is time well spent. That preventative time is time well spent.
So what should you do if you suspect that you've given money to someone when you're not supposed, you shouldn't have? So say you give someone your credit card, they call you and they say, I need your, like this is one of these spam calls that comes, or these phishing calls, and then you give them your credit card just because you think that it was legitimate. What can you do to kind of undo, like some, like a quick remedy or something you should do right away?
It really depends. So what we're talking about is self-compromise, and you can self-compromise your own data. It can be your own credentials, your social security number, your driver's license, a credit card number. So you have, been a victim of a scam, whether it's through email, a phone call. You have willingly provided your information to someone ostensibly under false pretenses.
Yes, correct.
So what we always recommend is you really need to look at what data was compromised, because that is what's going to determine the steps you need to take moving forward. We'll use your example of the credit card. I gave my credit card out to someone over the phone that said they were with my bank or with my credit card issuer. Our recommendation is immediately call your legitimate issuer. Let's just say it's Discover Card. I accidentally gave my Discover Card out to someone on the phone, and I don't think I should have. Call Discover. Tell them that. They will do a couple of things. One, they may say, oh, yes, Miss Velasquez, we actually did call you about some fraudulent charges. So we would like to know, and we resolved it. So thank you very much for your time. Now you verified, oh, I actually didn't compromise it. It really was a legitimate call. That doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. Or that they will then say, oh, you gave this out over the phone. This is our process when that happens. Different credit card issuers, different banks, different financial institutions, they will all have a different process based on, kind of where they're at in the analytics game. Some of them will say, we're closing your account and we're issuing you a new card. Others will say, we're going to put a flag on your account and flag more transactions and ask you more questions about approving transactions. It really just depends on how detailed their analytics are. And we just tell people, follow the process, whatever they tell you to do. And then, of course, if it's something more than that, if it's a lot of information, I would recommend that you call for help. So call the Identity Theft Resource Center. You can contact the Federal Trade Commission and report it. If it happens online, you can contact the IC3, ic3.gov, which is the FBI, the place where you can file on complaints about online activity and scams. So there are a lot of different places that you can go depending on what happened. But if you get lost, you're like, I don't even know where to start, you can start with the ITRC. We'll point you in the right direction.
Great.
Yeah. Would it be fair to hold on? Forgot the question. Had a brain fart. Well, we'll just move on.
Okay. So we have a question here from Maureen. She says, when filling out forms and they ask for your social security number, is there a way to ask for a different number you can put down? If it's not like the DMV, like a rental application or other random forms that are not from the government?
It really depends. Now, the unfortunate reality is that your social security number is what's used in the financial services system. It's how any entity verifies that you are you. I'm going to make a bet that there's probably more than one Eva Velasquez out there in the world. probably more than one. There's
Yeah.
probably more than one that's got the same year of birth that I do, and month, and probably day. There's we got hundreds of millions of people in this country. So our social security number is how we verify that I am the Eva Velasquez who, is 49 years old, lives here, works in San Diego, and is the CEO of the ITRC. So there is not, you cannot get around providing that number for legitimate needs, for financial. The government organizations use it, but so when you're applying for a loan or a credit card, now in some circumstances they don't actually need it, and my recommendation is you just leave it blank. Just leave it blank and don't even say anything. Now, if they come back and say, we have to do that because we have to either run your credit, because again, it's a financial instrument or something of that nature, then you have a decision to make. And that is, do I want to do business with this entity? But unless they have to verify that you are you, unless it's a financial transaction, it could be, it's even medical, they really don't need it. They want it so that they can, if you don't pay the bill, they can find you and take you to collections. But if you're paying the bill up front, you can tell them, you don't need this. You don't need this piece of data about me.
To get back, I remember what I was going to ask now. Brain kicking back in. We have viewers across the country. Sometimes we have viewers that come in from Europe occasionally that watch our show, but mainly pertaining to the U.S., our U.S. audience. Do you find a big difference from state to state on their consumer protection for identity theft, mainly being financial? Because the nuances are different with state law to state law, obviously. But is there
not when it comes to it depends. Now we've got protections that are in place. So things like the data breach notification laws, which have to do with compromised data, notifying you if there's been compromised data, those vary from state to state. In fact, there may still be one state that doesn't have one. I have to check. It's been a while since I looked. But as far as the statutes for prosecuting someone for identity theft, yes, those are going to vary, but they have little impact on what's afforded to consumers as far as the protections. Those are more coming at the federal level. When you think about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which entitles you to the copies of your credit report, free copies of your credit report, which makes it so that you're only liable for the first $50 of fraudulent charges on a credit card account. Those are federal in nature. So at the state level, it's really more about getting the bad guy and prosecuting the bad guy, whereas the protections that are in place are more uniform. Now, there's going to be little things that vary, of course. Are there some states that are better than others about prosecuting the actual identity thieves? I mean, I would say no. I don't think any of them are good. I don't think we're doing a good job nationally in making this a national priority, and I don't think any state really is an example that we can highlight. I'm not saying that they aren't bringing those prosecutions, but it's not a resource priority.
Yeah.
And I can say that I worked for the prosecutor's office for 21 years. I don't hate law enforcement. I actually think they are doing a really tough job. And I want to see more resources and support for them. But I can say from experience that unfortunately, these types of prosecutions and these types of investigations, they just aren't as high a priority as other ones, even though they touch so many people and impact so many people.
Interesting, related to a story I had with my significant experience with identity theft back in 2006, is that even now, as I have some friends that might approach to know my history and say, what do I do? Well, usually first thing I say is go to ITRC's website. But then was, and even now, was when I would say I'm dealing with police officers because the criminal identity theft experience, they go, what? and they didn't understand the laws California had in place for identity theft victims. And even now, I might talk to an individual and they don't understand, like, say, law enforcement. They don't understand, well, how can you not be the guy that did this because your name's on the warrant in those extreme cases? But they don't understand the implications of the identity theft, which, criminal identity theft can be the most extreme because people lose their freedom from it. But a lot of people don't, even law enforcement, don't understand that. Very funny but true story is that when I was being found judicially innocent by the judge down at the court down Vista, the judge had never heard, and it's been so long, I still keep this, I still have the seal with me, in a desk, but he never heard of the form you have that can filled out to declare a person a victim of criminal identity theft for the state of California that has to be approved by the judge. He never heard of it. The attorney had never heard of it. Prosecution never heard of it. The bailiff had never heard of it. And I've got the form right there, and I'm instructing the judge how to fill it out. And the PD and the others. And maybe for that one couple minutes, I was the smartest person in the room.
You were the expert.
Yeah, they didn't know. One attorney had heard about it, but they'd never seen it. The judge is like, "What's this? I've never seen it. What is this form?" And I'm instructing the whole court, going, incidentally, it was my last day in court too, but so I just call that sweet a turnaround of events on that one. But it was that misunderstood, and it still is as prevalent and more common as identity theft has become.
They are making progress, and I will say that one of the biggest things that happened 3 years ago, you no longer are required to have a police report for a lot of types of identity theft. You can now use the FTC affidavit. There were changes to the Fair Credit Reporting Act that will allow, because it says law enforcement agency, and the FTC is a regulatory and law enforcement agency. And industry essentially said, okay, we will make it easier for victims. And so for financial identity theft, most banks and major card issuers and retailers, they will accept that FTC affidavit, which you can get online at idtheft.gov. They'll accept that in lieu of a police report. Now, there are certain circumstances where you really do need a police report. And to your point, James, in a criminal identity theft case, 1000%, the FTC affidavit is not going to do it. In a medical identity theft case, really depends on the provider. And depends on the insurance company or the medical provider. Will they take it or won't they take it? Some will, some won't.
Yeah. Damn, this is good. We're covering some great stuff, but we are going at we're about almost 2.5 times probably about now what we initially thought the interview would be at, because it's so easy to go over with a subject that's, one, so fascinating, two, so important, and because it's so important, partly because it's underrated, but again, it affects us. We all know somebody that this has happened to. This happened to my neighbor, or maybe happened to myself, happened to my mom, grandparents, kid, whomever.
It has impacted everybody
and yet so underrated. But we have gone extremely long.
Yes. But it's great information.
Oh, God, yes.
Sorry, guys. You kept asking me questions.
You know what? Maybe we can have you come back again and talk about some other topics that we really couldn't get to this time.
Sure, absolutely. I would be delighted.
Keep it social media, how that can be used. And then the other part we haven't even touched on that you finally mentioned, which is a whole other area, is the medical identity theft.
Yeah.
That's a whole other area I would love to cover. Do you mind if we ask you to come on a future date? Would you be?
I would be delighted to come on a future date. I love
pressure.
I love reaching people that may not. I think it's great that your audience may not be getting this information anywhere else, and it's really important. So,
yeah,
I'm happy to share. Whatever tips and information that I can, and maybe next year after things settle down after the holidays, we'll talk about what we need to look out for on the horizon. There's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of healthcare still and disaster scams still.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All
All right.
right.
With that, we're going to go ahead and don't sign off yet because about to start the recording. So with that, Eva, thank you very much. And this has been great. We've had we're getting messages right now from our viewers saying
Yeah.
this has been extremely informative. Thank you for sharing. They have enjoyed the heck out of it.
Good. Thank you
This has
guys
been
for
awesome.
listening. It was my pleasure to be here.